Hello everyone and welcome to our monthly Amazon Market Insights webinar. This month we are talking about the category coffee machines on Germany. But before we start, let's just briefly introduce myself. My name is Ines Notch. I'm Principal Consulting at Metoda, so I'm taking care of our consulting business here. I'm with Metoda since 6.5 years. And yes, before that, I was working at Amazon. I started there as a program manager, switched into the senior vendor manager position there. But now at Metoda, I'm supporting mainly brand manufacturers in getting like the best insights out of this tons of e-commerce data you can get from Amazon and beyond. As I said, we are running these webinars on a monthly basis, and we always do look into the same topics. So we start with the market. So how big is the market? What are the top brands within the market? Then we are going to look into how do customers actually search and buy on Amazon. And finally, we are looking into the share of voice, meaning like which brands are most visible and in organic and paid visibility in that category. So let's directly start. We start with the market, as I already mentioned. So we're going to look initially into the main category for coffee machines. It's the main category is kitchen. Then we're looking into the orders and revenue generated in this category on Amazon Germany. Looking then in the next step into like the different price segments within that category or like these categories. And finally, looking into the top brands in sales and revenue in coffee machines this month. So let's start with the development of the main category kitchen. You're seeing here the development since January 2019. And what we can see here is actually that during the year, the demand is quite stable, showing a peak at the end of the year, which is not uncommon also for other categories. 2019 was quite flat and then the peak. If we look into 2020, of course, you all know 2020 reflects in the sales figures also the COVID-19 pandemic, with the first lockdown started, at least in Germany, in March 2020. And what we see for the whole year is actually that we see year-over-year growth of 40% with a very, very strong peak at the end of the year. And this is driven by COVID-19 measures, which resulted in like offices being closed, shops being closed. So people were buying more online. At the same time, were spending more time at home and also like cooking at home. And as you might remember, during the summer 2020, it was really hard to go to holidays. So most of the people also stayed at home during the summertime. So this is clearly reflected in that strong sales in 2020. 2021 started very strong too, with like nearly 40% year-over-year sales compared to 2020. But if you follow the green line, you see that from the mid of the year, the demand was more or less on the level of the previous year of 2020. Of course, we also see a peak here in Q4, but it's much lower. We only see like for the whole year growth of 8%, like starting very strong, being then lower than the previous year. And 2022 now shows like that the year started even below 2021. And we are seeing here not only effects from the COVID-19 pandemic, with the COVID-19 pandemic, but what we also see is macroeconomic effects like supply issues, transportation devices, transportation capacity issues. We also see like increasing raw material. We see growing inflation. So people actually keep their money in their pocket and don't spend so much anymore. So 2022 will be looking very, very different than the previous 2 years. There is a question coming in just directly on this. slide, and I will answer it directly. So the question was, is this data referring to Germany or to the EU5? And it's actually just referring to Germany, because within this webinar today, we're just looking into the German market. So we're just looking into Germany. But let's now deep dive into the coffee machine category. As you see, there are quite a few categories listed in that category on Amazon Germany, starting from like very simple products like French press, going up to covering like really up to the bean to cup coffee machines. So we see here a very broad range of products that is covered by these categories. Within all these categories, we see like for the last half year, so Q4 2021 and Q1 2022, roughly 1 point something, like about 1 million orders were placed for these products in the last half year, generating 177 million euro gross revenue. It's important it's gross revenue because we are calculating the revenue based on the orders and the price displayed on the product detail page, which includes tax. And what we also see here is that the demand in Q4 is higher than in Q1, which is, I think, also not surprising, because in Q4 we have much more traffic on Amazon. Yet coffee machines are also like a quite nice gift for Christmas. And of course, too, what was different last year compared to the previous year is we could invite friends and family over for like Advent coffee or like a Christmas dinner. So it's also a good good reason to simply buy a new coffee machine that can make great coffee for more than one person. All this revenue is, of course, split out into these different categories, and that's what we will show you on the next slide. So we see many different categories. The largest categories from a volume perspective are actually the classical filter coffee machines, then the single serve machines. We talk about Nespresso system or Senseo or Tassimo, and the third one are the bean to cup machines from a volume perspective. If we look at the revenue, the picture looks quite different, because the bean to cup coffee machines cover more than 50% of the revenue within all these categories together. This is simply due, and you can see it here, driven by the fact that bean to cup coffee machines are on average much more expensive than a simple filter coffee machine. So from an order perspective, it's filter coffee machines and single serve machines. From a revenue perspective, the largest category are bean to cup coffee machines. And we can also see this when we look into the different price segments. So we split up the complete prices in 25 euro steps. And what you can see here is below or up to 100 euro. It's mainly filter coffee machines and single serve machines that generate the volumes here. And above 250 euro, it's mainly bean to cup coffee machines. And you see here between 25 and 100 euro, we see the main volumes in these two categories, but the main revenue is really generated by bean to cup coffee machines because of the huge difference between the price of these different categories. And in between, we have the espresso and cappuccino machines. And if we look into the different brands here that sell these products on Amazon, we see that actually the market is quite consolidated. So the top 5 brands in orders represent like 62% of all orders. And in revenue, it's even more, like the top 5 brands represent 75% of the total revenue in that category, in that time period we were looking at. And you see, like from an order perspective, DeLonghi and Philips are at the same level, followed by Melita. But of course, from a revenue perspective, this again looks different. DeLonghi, which is selling mainly or like very strongly bean to cup coffee machines, they also sell like single serve machines. But of course, from a revenue perspective, it's mainly bean to cup machines, and they are the market leader in that category. They have the highest revenue there, followed by Philips, which is set up very broad. So the volumes mainly come from Senseo, while the revenue mainly comes from bean to cup coffee machines. And then Siemens, which was not showing up in the top 5 brands for orders, but only now in the top 5 brands for revenue, with a very high average price, which is simply driven by like bean to cup coffee machines that are sold here by Siemens, and they make it up into the top 5 for the revenue. While Melita, the third one in orders, is mainly generating volumes with filter coffee machines. So let's wrap up the market section. There is another question. I will just answer directly. Is this including marketplace sellout? Yes, it is. All our market figures include Amazon and third-party sales. So it's covering all of that. Let's continue with just a wrap up of the market section. As we've seen, about 1 million coffee machines were ordered at Amazon in that half year we are looking at, generating about 177 million euro gross revenue, with Q4 showing a higher demand than Q1, which is not surprising. The main volumes are generated by filter coffee machines and like single serve machines, but the main revenues are generated by bean to cup machines. And that's also what we've seen, like 64% of the volumes are generated below 100 euro, but 68% of the revenue is generated above 250 euro. So you see these different price classes within that like broad range of coffee makers we are looking at Amazon. The market is consolidated, so the top 5 brands own 75% of the revenue, and DeLonghi is the strongest brand, followed by Philips on Amazon in Germany. Then let's straight away continue with the customer journey. So we are looking here at how do consumers search on Amazon and buy. What we always see in general is that consumers searching for products on Amazon, that they have like a much higher purchase intent, like if they would comparably search for something on Google. And what we also see, the search terms they are usually like using 2 to 3 terms, like 2 to 3 words in one search term. It always contains like an interest, like for instance here, coffee machine or like a filter coffee machine. It sometimes contains a brand. And of course, it can also contain an occasion, like I'm looking for a birthday present or a Christmas present. But I have to tell you, within like coffee machines, these occasion-driven searches are not very strong. It's mainly driven by interest and by brand. So that is something we will see quite soon, because first we look at the branded versus the generic search traffic. Then we look in the top interests and into the top brands searched for. And then finally, we are looking into where do actually the conversions of these top brands come from. So looking into branded versus generic search traffic shows a picture that's quite usual on Amazon too for different categories. So we see the major portion of traffic is for generic searches. So generic means the search term does not include any brand name or a product name that's unique to one brand. And only like roughly the rest of like 29% is for branded searches. And what we see comparing Q4 versus Q1 is that Q4 has, as we have seen before, like higher sales, but it also has like a higher branded share. This is also something we see across many, many categories on Amazon, because especially like Cyber Week and the Christmas deals, and maybe looking for a present, resides in the fact that consumers search more for brands, especially like the deals with like Cyber Week and Christmas deals, drive consumers to search for like a good bargain from a well-known brand. So this is also a behavior that we know from other categories too. But what do customers actually search for? And what we see here is that the top topics searched for on Amazon by consumers in the coffee category is actually they are looking for Kaffee Vollautomaten, meaning for bean to cup machines. Followed then simply by the word Kaffeemaschine. If you recall, like how the size volume of bean to cup coffee machines from the market perspective, we have seen that the order share is only 19%, while the traffic share is actually 37%, which indicates that the conversion rate for bean to cup coffee machines is lower than for a filter coffee machine or a single serve coffee machine, which is also not surprising because like bean to cup coffee machines are more expensive. So people might look more than once and compare different products before they finally spend 250, 500 euro or even more for a bean to cup coffee machine, while buying a product around 50 euro doesn't need so much research by the consumer. What we also see is when we look at the brand strength, so the share of search traffic on one brand, DeLonghi has the highest brand strength in that category on Amazon. As we have seen, DeLonghi is also the strongest brand, especially in regards to revenue, because of the bean to cup coffee machines they are selling, but they are also selling very strongly like Nespresso machines. And that is actually the second strongest brand that we see here. It's Nespresso. Of course, consumers are searching for Nespresso. The machines are not sold by Nespresso themselves. They are either coming from DeLonghi or Krups. But as a brand, it's searched strongly in that coffee category too. The next one is Siemens, and so on and so forth. So what we see here is that from the top brands regarding volume or revenue market share, all of these also show up in these top 10 most searched brands. And just continuing, so where do these brands get their conversions from? You recall 71% of the search traffic is generic, and 64% of the conversions are based on generic searches, while 34 are from branded searches. So this also shows that like branded search usually has like a higher conversion rate than generic searches. And if we start at the bottom with Jura, which is a well-known brand for coffee machines from Switzerland, you see that their conversions actually depend to 100% on branded search, which is simply because if a consumer is searching for Kaffee Vollautomat, which is the most searched search term too, not only the most searched topic, but also the most searched search term, the Euro machines actually doesn't make it on the first search result page, simply because they have a very high average price, usually above 1,000 euro. So they are not converting frequently enough to be visibly organically on these generic search terms. So Euro will show up if a consumer is searching for a Euro coffee machine. And that's why they get all their conversions actually from branded search. While if we look at DeLonghi, Philips, or Melita, they have a high generic search share or conversion share. And DeLonghi is actually getting the largest portion of the generic conversions from the most searched term, Kaffee Vollautomaten. They are positioned very, very well on Amazon. You most probably know that if you're within that category. So they get a lot of generic conversions, but of course they also, as the brand with the strongest brand strength, get a relevant portion of conversions based from branded search. If we look, for instance, on the competitor side, which is quite low, it's roughly 2%. So competitor-based conversions simply means the consumer is searching for brand A, but then buying brand B. We see that, for instance, Bosch has quite a high share here, but this is simply from searches for Tassimo, which is also a system comparable to Melitta, but has such a high traffic. And all the Tassimo machines are from Bosch. So if a customer is searching for Tassimo machine, they are ending up at a Bosch machine, and that's where these competitor conversions are coming from. And if there are no further questions on the customer journey, I would just wrap that up. So what we have seen, 71% of the search traffic is generic, resulting in 64% conversions from generic traffic. We also see that the brand share is a little bit higher in Q4 compared to Q1, which is very common across different categories on Amazon. Kaffeevollautomat is the most searched topic, and it's also the most searched search term. We will just see that in a couple of minutes, followed by coffee machine. And as I already mentioned, it seems if you compare search traffic with actually order volumes, that the conversion rate for like higher priced bean to cup coffee machines is lower than for a single serve coffee machine or a filter coffee machine that is selling for a much lower price. And as it's stated here too, like the average bean to cup coffee machine has 6 times the price of a filter coffee machine or a single serve machine. So consumers simply think about it twice or even 3 times before they buy it. Most such brand is DeLonghi. And the major portion of their conversions, of their generic conversions, is actually for the search term Kaffeevollautomaten. So no further questions. Then we continue with the share of voice. Share of voice simply says how visible is a brand on relevant search terms on the first search result page. And if you're working on or with Amazon, you all know that visibility is quite important. If you're not visible with your products on the first search result page, it's really getting hard to get consumers buy your products. And what we also see more and more is actually that Amazon is spending more and more space on the first search result page for advertising rather than organic listings. So advertising gets more and more important. This picture is more generic, but actually, especially in the category kitchen, it's pretty much how it currently looks like in Germany. There are other categories where we see more organic than paid search results, but for kitchen, this picture is quite true. And that's why we are looking into the visibility. So we're first looking at what are the top search terms in the category that we monitored to show you the visibility results. Then we are looking into the top brands, organic and paid visibility. And then I brought you an example, quite interesting, that we will look at. So as I already mentioned, Kaffeevollautomaten is the word with the most search traffic, but it's also the search term with the most search traffic on Amazon in Germany, followed by Kaffeemaschine. And then we have like this warehouse deal. The Amazon warehouse deal, you might know that. It's like, for instance, return products where the packaging isn't proper anymore, it's broken, that you can get for a discounted price. And of course, if you want to buy a bean to cup coffee machine that costs several €100, quite some share of people are looking for warehouse deals in this section, because you can get maybe 20% off, maybe 30% off, depends on the status of this individual product, that you can save from a new product. And especially if it's just like an open box product, then there might not be any difference compared to the new product. You can just save money. The only two brands that show up in the top 10 search terms are Nespresso and DeLonghi. All other search terms are generic. We are doing that visibility analysis for the webinars always only on generic terms. So we were adding like 2 more generic terms. So we are covering with the top 10 generic search terms. We are looking at, in the visibility analysis, 57% of the total search traffic in that time period. And what did we find out when we tracked that? We are seeing here that on the left-hand side, the organic visibility, on the right-hand side, the paid visibility, that from an organic perspective, Philips has the highest visibility when we look at all these 10 search terms, followed by DeLonghi, and then the third one is Melita. Why in the paid visibility, you see the strongest brand is DeLonghi, followed by Miele. We see a difference here. So DeLonghi is second in organic visibility, but like third with quite a distance to Miele and the other brands. First in paid visibility. So from our naming, that means DeLonghi is actually over investing in paid visibility. So another example is if we look at Siemens, they have an organic visibility of 7%, but they only have a paid visibility of 1%. So they are actually under investing in paid visibility. So you see different strategies here from different brands, trying to push their sales by paid visibility or restricting paid visibility compared to their organic visibility. What is very special here is that even in paid visibility, we see mainly, or we actually see only well-known brands. If we look into paid visibility in other categories, we very often see paid visibility full with unknown brands, quite often based in China, that simply try to push their sales by paid visibility. Well, in that category, we see that all well-known brands also invest in paid visibility. So there's not such a gap between well-known brands in organic and unknown brands in paid visibility. We also see that from the top 6 brands, we've seen in the market share that have the highest market share in orders or revenue. They are all also showing up in the organic visibility in the top 10. And it's nearly the same for the paid visibility. The only brand that's missing in the top 10 for paid visibility is Bosch. They are actually on number 11. So they are quite close to. But what we really see is that this consolidated market that we see in the market shares, we also see that in visibility. So there's not much room for other categories than the ones that are already very strong in that category. And as I said, I'm bringing you an example. And this time we were looking into the paid visibility during the day. So what you see here in the chart is the orange line is the traffic during the day. So what you see quite easily is between 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening, roughly, we have the highest traffic during the day. And then we have like the different brands here. So we focus on the top 5, and so the graph doesn't get too messy. We see DeLonghi with the 32% paid visibility, then Miele, then Melita, Philips, Krups, and the others is just covering all the rest. And what we see here is that DeLonghi is very, very strong in the morning, but they are losing visibility during, like from noon during the day. We really looked into details to find out, okay, which products are affected here. And what we have seen is that like the top selling products that were very visible paid, they seem to run out of budget during the quite early in the day. And yeah, they are simply not showing up anymore. So the products, the sponsored products that are showing up in the afternoon are rather some that are not like having or either they have higher budgets, but I don't expect it. They simply don't spend so much budget. The top products advertised, they run out of budget in early in the day, and then Miele is actually taking over these placements. So as you see in the morning, it's DeLonghi winning the advertising placements, but in the afternoon, when DeLonghi is running out of budget, Miele is winning the advertising placements. And that's why, like, why such a view is very interesting, because you don't only know how visible am I, but also like how visible am I during the day. What we, for instance, also see, like the third one, Melita, is very strong in outside like the main hours, which is an indication that the bids are not high enough, because like the overall budget isn't high enough to win these top placements during the day. There is a question, we'll just answer it. The question is, what do you mean by running out of budget through the day? What I simply mean is you usually have like a budget per campaign that is set, for instance, on like, it always depends which, how you run your campaigns, if you have that done by manually by an agency, or if you are using a tool. So you usually set the daily budget for a campaign. If that budget is gone early in the morning already because you had to pay too many clicks, then the campaign doesn't have any budget anymore and it's not displayed to the consumer anymore. So if you have like, I don't know, €100 budget on a campaign, and you already got until 12 o'clock so many clicks that your €100 budget is gone, the campaigns will not show up in the afternoon anymore. Hope that answered the question. So that, like, as an example, as I said, when you look into this intraday pie visibility, what we see is that we see different patterns. So we are distinguishing more or less like 3 patterns. One is you have like a low budget, which usually also it either means like your bids are too high for your budget, or you simply have a really low budget. Because it actually means you're showing up in the morning, you're winning the placements in the morning, but your budget on the campaign is gone during the day, so you're not showing up anymore in the afternoon or in the evening. Then we have something that we call high budget, but it actually means that budget and bids are quite good in balance. So you're quite visible, your visibility is quite stable during the day, and maybe even in the evening, if someone with a low budget is running out of budget, you are able to take over additional advertising placements, which means that is like a really good situation you're in. And then we have like another situation where we see like low budget with low bids, which usually means that during like the bids are too low, the budget is high enough to cover the visibility over the whole day, but the bids are too low that you are actually like showing up on the top placements with your advertising in time periods where others are heavily bidding. So depending on your budget and your bids, it's relevant how high they are and how well they are balanced to be visible during the whole day. So let's wrap that up, the share of voice section. So what we have seen is that Philips, with a very broad selection, has the strongest organic visibility, while DeLonghi has the strongest paid visibility, because they are like investing quite a lot in advertising. What we have also seen is that different to many other categories we are looking in is that actually in organic as well in paid visibility, we only see or mainly see these well-known, very successful brands showing up in that category, and we don't see like unknown brands showing up in paid visibility because they try to push their visibility via advertising. But what we have also seen is that the market is consolidated also in visibility. So it's really like market is consolidated regarding sales, and of course it's then also consolidated regarding visibility. And we also see that, like as an example, Miele is running that strategy to invest in advertising to further push their sales, and they are successful battling each other with DeLonghi during the day regarding taking over advertising placements. And what you have seen, like with this intraday visibility, is really that it's very important that your budget is high enough, but also that the bids fit your budget. So if your bids are too high, so your budget will not be available for the whole day or will not be enough for the whole day, you will only be visible during certain times of the day. And the other way around, if your budget is too low, so your bids are too low to get like the advertising placements during the high traffic times, you're not being visible during the day either, or at least not at positions that are relevant to consumers. And one thing we just briefly looked at is we were looking at the consumables for coffee, because there's like this German coffee association that are like showing or presenting like figures on the consumables on a yearly basis. And what we have seen, I think that's interesting too, is actually that like the whole bean owns like 41% of all coffee sold last year in Germany, and they actually have like a very high increase last year compared to the previous year. That when we compare that to the machine sales on Amazon, means that we see that the share of like new bean to cup or espresso machines where you usually use like whole beans is much lower for all machines than actually the consumables share for whole beans. So would be interesting to look into the sales of the consumables too on Amazon to understand if Amazon is just different from a sales perspective for the machines, or if the consumable sales on Amazon is similar to the machine sales on Amazon. Are there any further questions? I don't see any. Then we actually managed to be ready on time, even 5 minutes before. That's great. So let's just sum up everything we looked at in the last 40 minutes. So what you have seen is there is a wide range of methods to prepare your coffee. So we also have a broad variety of products within that category, coffee machines on Amazon in Germany. Within that broad range, about 1 million coffee machines were sold on Amazon during the last half year, generating 177 million euro gross revenue within that last half year. And what we see is that the main volumes are like for simple coffee machines like filter and single serve machines, while the main revenue is generated by bean to cup machines. What we have also seen in sales as well as like in visibility is that the market is quite consolidated. So the top brands own like more than 75% of the revenue, and also like from the visibility. The major search traffic is generic, which is also very common on Amazon. And we see that really to gain a high market share, it is very necessary to convert on generic search, because that's the main traffic source for in this category. So especially like premium brands depend on branded search because they are simply not visible on these generic search terms because they are too expensive. So just a few consumers are willing to buy their products. And like, if you want to change that by paid visibility, it's very, very important that your budget and your bids are balanced so you are visible during the whole day. So there are a couple of questions coming in. So let's see. Würdet ihr vorschlagen, deutlich mehr in generic Keywords zu bieten, sichtbar zu sein? As I just mentioned, the major traffic is on generic search terms. So if you really want to sell volumes, you need to bid on these top traffic generic search terms, especially if you are not visible organically on the first page. I can't. I don't know if that's the case or not because I just see your name. I don't see the company that you belong to. So yes, of course, you should definitely invest in generic search, in generic keywords, because that's where the volumes are coming from. So there's one other question. Can you spend 3 words on data from Amazon is gathered by metoda, or where can I get this information, presumably on your website? Actually, when we send out that presentation, there will also be one slide explaining where the data is coming from, but I can just briefly get you some insight. So the market data is actually, it's an algorithm that we are using that was developed in-house, where we are estimating the orders on the Amazon marketplace of a product, and revenue is then simply calculated, the estimated order by the consumer price stated on the product detail page. The customer journey, like the search data, that is based on Amazon search terms. So if you're a vendor or a seller on Amazon, you know the search term data from Amazon. That's the data we are using. We just have an algorithm that's adding to the search terms also a traffic estimate and visibility. It's really simply the rankings on the first search result page if we search for that keyword. That is quite simple, and we are assigning also visibility depending on the rank of the product on that search result page. There's another question, is it possible sharing the presentation? Everyone who was registered for that webinar will receive an email including the presentation slides and also the questions and answers. So then, thank you very much for your questions. As I already stated, we are running these webinars on a monthly basis. Next month, it's about pots and pans, also again, kitchen. And in August, we are having a deep dive look into the pet food categories. If you don't want to miss one of our webinars, just sign up for our newsletter, or you can also get like the presentations or also like the video recording from historical webinars. You can find them on our website. And if you are interested in a certain topic that's not covered yet, you can also contact us and just ask us if we can include that topic in our webinar series. And of course, if you have the need for more detailed insights, just get in touch with us. We are running, of course, similar projects like what we present here in the webinar, also as consulting projects at Metoda. So then thank you very much, and have a great day, and hope to see you soon or hear from you. Goodbye.